This video was brought to you by Tall Man Toys and Comics. Did you ever go see The Bad Guys? Of course you did. DreamWorks Animation is basically your cinematic guardian now, and anything they say you have to pay attention to. The bad guy redemption story is really nothing new. It's been seen a billion times in other TV shows and cartoons. But still, The Bad Guys presented us with a very great story with charming characters, fun action, and a really good twist on the bad guy redemption story. But what if I told you guys that there was a time when we had not only one, not two, but 3 bad guy animated redemption movies come out around the exact same time? Okay, so Wreck-It Ralph came out 2 years after the other two, but still, that's pretty impressive. I remember seeing all 3 of these movies when they first came out in theaters, and it was kind of like watching Marvel back and forth, if you know what I mean. All these 3 films came out around the exact same time as each other, and were big hits at the box office, each starting their own franchises. But which bad guy movie worked the best? Which movie had the best characters, the best idea, and the best bad guy redemption story? Well, let's find out. This is Bad Guy versus Bad Guy versus Bad Guy. So our first character on the list is Gru. Now, in order to talk about Gru, we do need to talk about Despicable Me. I remember seeing the first teaser trailer in front of Where the Wild Things Are back on the big screen many years ago. Back then, I had no idea what to think of it, though it said it had the people behind Ice Age and Horny Years of Who working on it, though later on I later revealed that it was not a Blue Sky movie. This was a new animation studio, so nobody knew what to think of it back in the day, and surprisingly, Despicable Me made a lot of money, and it also made a lot of people happy, including the critics and audiences. And of course, sequel after sequel after sequel. Now, in my opinion, Gru is the weakest of the 3. He's not bad or anything, and don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed this movie. But Gru to me is like comparing Flick from A Bug's Life and Z from Ants. Both are good on their own, but the strongest one depends on the character. And Gru is not a bad character, but compared to someone like Megamind or Ralph from Wreck-It Ralph, which we're going to get to those, he just seems like the weakest one. But enough of that, let's talk about the strengths of Gru. What works with Gru is his personality. He's just a guy wanting to become a villain. I mean, if you watch the other Despicable Me movies, you would understand his character and the drama he has to go through with his mother. You kind of sympathize with him, and the heart within Despicable Me was involving these 3 girls, and they are the highlight of the film. And thanks to these characters, it's what makes the drama and the comedy stay strong. Now, the one thing that kind of bothered some people was that Gru kind of looks very eerily similar to Lex Luthor from DC. Now, they're not eerily similar, but if you really think about the design and the way that he talks and everything, which it's not a bad performance, but still, a lot of comparisons, he does remind me of Lex Luthor. But that's just me. So Gru is a very good, likable character. He may be weaker compared to the other 2 that are coming up, but he is a pretty nice character. And it's all thanks to Steve Carell's performance and his personality. Now let's talk about Megamind. Now, compared to Gru from Despicable Me, Megamind is the strongest character. If I had to choose this and Despicable Me, it would obviously be this movie. But it's not just the story and the humor that works, it's also Megamind himself, played by the incomparable Will Ferrell. Now, say what you want about Will Ferrell, but he really fits the role in this movie. Will Ferrell is energized, likable, funny, and just so villainous. And the struggle that he has to go through is a very understandable struggle, being an outcast in the real world and being in competition with Metro Man. It's so interesting and brings a lot of personality into the character. Now, are there any bad things about him? Well, the liar misunderstanding between him and Ross is kind of cliched. If you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. But the dilemma that Megamind has to go through and the strange twist near the end of this movie really works and gives the movie a more weird identity. Even though this movie is technically a parody of superhero films, I could see the similarities to both this and Despicable Me, which Like I said before, I would prefer this movie. And I feel bad because we never got a sequel to this movie. But to be fair, at least we're getting a TV series based on it. So yeah, compared to Gru, I think Megamind is the strongest character. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen the movie yet. And now let's talk about Wreck-It Ralph. Of all the three films, I think Wreck-It Ralph is the better movie. It's not just because of the story, characters, and animation. Everything else just works perfectly with this movie. Of course, Ralph is the best character. Sure, it's the typical bad guy redemption story with the bad guy wanting to be good and changing his ways, but this film has something that the other two films didn't do well on, and that's its message. The message in Wreck-It Ralph is coping. Life is not always what we see it. Life is not how we want it. And if you don't like it, try to make the best of it. That's a rare message for kids, and that's definitely how relatable this movie is. That's what makes Wreck-It Ralph stand out from the crowd. Wreck-It Ralph takes a very simple idea and does everything in its power that it can do with it. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie thinking that it was just going to be another typical kids film, and I was in elementary school when I saw the trailer for it, and it just blew me away. Ralph himself is a very likable character. Yeah, he's a bad guy, but we all know inside of him that he's still a good guy. And you kind of feel bad for him. You kind of do want him to get attention and want him to feel loved with everybody else in the game. It's really relatable and very sympathetic. If it wasn't for the stuff with Penelope near the end, I probably would have said that he had the best bad guy redemption, but Wreck-It Ralph is probably the best movie of the three. So, overall, guys, all three movies have their strengths and weaknesses. Despicable Me does better emotionally, Megamind does better comedically, and Wreck-It Ralph does better with its message. But the movie that did much better was Megamind. Wreck-It Ralph is the better movie, but Megamind did it so much better with its characters and story and humor and animation. Despicable Me is good, but maybe a little too vanilla. But what do you guys think? I would love to hear you guys on your thoughts and comments below. Comment below, let me know, and which you think is the best bad guy redemption movie.